Hello and welcome back to the NMMA. We just completed Sim 1 of the 2013-14 season and had a very exciting set of results, including the widest gulf between the haves and have-nots that we have ever had in this league. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the standings. All right, first of all, taking a look at the East, we have three teams that are above 25 wins, which that is definitely the first time we've had that happen so far in this sim. Starting off the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are coming off of an 8-game winning streak and in the 1 seed. They are still running the same starting five they were last year, but seemingly to even better results following some good prog. They have a plus 11.4 differential, which is good for third in the East, but they are currently sitting in the 1 seed. Tied with them by record is the Orlando Magic, coming off of back-to-back finals appearances. Now starting Bismack Biyombo at the 4 with Kevin Love at the 5, Pekovic coming off the bench. The Orlando Magic are at a plus 15.6 differential and easily the best team in the East, despite having just the tied record with the Cavs. Just one game back are the actually tied by games back, but one fewer win. Are the Chicago Bulls coming off of a 13-game winning streak. They're in top form, looking the best that they've been, even above the first season where they were a 1 seed for a good chunk of the time. After bringing in Rajon Rondo, Thaddeus Young, and I believe a couple of other players, J.J. Redick off the bench, they have a very dominant defense. I'm not going to lie, I was kind of doubting this team. I didn't think that they would have the spacing to compete with all the other top teams, but with a plus 12.3 differential, they're looking like they absolutely do have what it takes. The Atlanta Hawks, with Brandon Jennings, now with more ins in his name than ever, are sitting firmly in the 4 seed with 21 wins and a plus 7.3 differential. The New Jersey Nets have fallen from their 62-win season last year down to the 5 seed. They're starting Isaiah Thomas. They've had a little bit of a regression from Dirk and KG, who are now on the wrong side of 35, but still a very competitive team. 3 games back from that and 1 game above 500, as you can see, the St. Vincent St. Mary Fighting Irish, formerly the Boston Celtics, Locke's new team in the East, with Damian Lillard, who they recently traded for, starting next to LeBron, Beal, Beasley, and Roy Hibbert. Very good team, but probably going to take some time to work out the kinks and get the chemistry working well. Sitting at 500 in the 7 seed are the New York Knicks, pretty much exactly where they were from last season. They did just make a trade that is pending right now because they need to drop one player. I need to wait to see who they announce that they're going to drop. But Zach Randolph would be headed to the Golden State Warriors very soon, bringing Rudy Gay to the Knicks. The Charlotte Bobcats, after an extremely disappointing past 2 seasons, first at the 15 seed and then the 12 seed, they brought in Oscar Schmidt, the Chaos Event rookie, and traded for Elton Brand, trading a swap for this year, a very risky move. But they've improved and are, despite being 3 games below 500, sitting just barely in the playoffs at the 8 seed. The 9th seed as a play-in team, remember we are having the play-in starting this year, are the Detroit Pistons, who had an extremely strong start to the sim earlier on. They brought in Yao Ming and have had some good progression from Mike Conley and Kimba and Vucevic. But they fell after a couple of games, I don't know why exactly, and are now sitting in the 9th seed. Philadelphia 76ers, they traded to bring Serge Ibaka back home to Philly, and this team probably should be a little bit better than they were, but they have a negative 8.4 differential. No idea why this team is struggling so badly in the 10 seed. They probably should have improved. I think that they were an 11 seed finishing last season, but alas. The Miami Heat, Kevin Durant, they moved Carlos Boozer for, I forget exactly what, but some sort of trade with the Hawks, who then moved Boozer again to the Jazz. This team is not cutting it. It seems that having that second pseudo-star next to Kevin Durant was very important. And they're starting 2 rookies. They also may be contributing to it, with a negative 9.6 differential. This team is an 11 seed, but probably even deeper in the darkness than that portrays. The Indiana Pacers are sitting in the 12 seed. They have not made that many changes. They're under new management. They signed Corey Maggette, but this team has kind of fallen off quite a bit. Fortunately, I do believe that they have their pick this year, so that should help things. The Milwaukee Bucks have improved from the 15 seed now up to the 13 seed after unfortunately striking out on Giannis and trading their number 2 overall pick, Victor Oladipo, for Chris Middleton. They are marginally improved. A lot of that is because the bottom has fallen out in the East entirely, but they're still firmly a lottery team and going to be in the Jokic and Embiid race. The Washington Wizards are sitting in the 14th seed. They have gotten a little bit worse, kind of shockingly. They are giving Cookie 0-5, the very wonderfully named rookie, substantial minutes, so that may be contributing to it a good amount. Enes Kanter did not progress after having a shocking -1 regression after his first season. So Thomas Robinson has kind of taken up the mantle right next to Nerlens Noel. Young developing team. And finally, our 15 seed, the post-Derrick Rose Toronto Raptors, had great progression for Harrison Barnes. Jonas Valanciunas looking pretty good, but this team has a long way to go, and they will be firmly in the lottery race. Moving over to the West, we have, again, 3 teams that are stand out with only single-digit losses, just like the East. To kick things off, our champion Houston Rockets, we are doing quite well for ourselves after a great progression from Kyrie Irving. Hayward is back to the bench despite good playoff performance, but that is not causing any sort of trouble. A 9-game winning streak and a plus 19.5 differential, that is good for second in the entire NBA. With just one more loss, but 2 games back, are the new look Denver Nuggets, plus 20.8 differential. I think the only reason they aren't the 1 seed is because they had to work out some chemistry issues from bringing in that big of a superstar of Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose, a 99 overall now, is their 6th man. Crazy stuff. This reeks of Luke meddling to me. But there you are. That is a 6th man of the year if I've ever seen one, a 99 overall. Utah Jazz are sitting in the 3 seed at 23-7. This team, after bringing in Carlos Boozer, I was expecting there to be more of an adjustment period with chemistry and whatnot, but looks like that is not the case, as this team is absolutely chugging to the top of the conference. They spent 2 seasons ago as the 1 seed, and then fell to the 5 seed, and had an unfortunate second-round sweep in the playoffs last year. So bringing in Boozer has revitalized them quite a bit with a plus 10.4 differential, and they're looking to keep this up. In the 4 seed with a plus 10 differential, still extremely strong team, the Sacramento Kings, 8 games back from the 1 seed, 3 games back from the Utah Jazz above them. But they had some great progression from even Luol Deng, along with Avery Bradley, Drew Holiday, and DeMarcus Cousins. This team is looking to be in peak form. I think they made a trade for someone. Who was it? Oh, yeah, David Lee, who's coming off the bench for them. So, that may be contributing to their success as well. Just a half game back from them are the Vancouver Grizzlies. Not a ton to say about this team. Russell Westbrook still dominant as ever, but no major changes. Wondering if they're going to make any moves. Followed by another one of the big shocks of the sim so far. The Los Angeles Lakers have improved from being deep, deep in the pit last year to, thanks to their great progression from Alexis Agenza and Jordan Crawford, as well as just some coaching tweaks, I believe. They are in the 6th seed, firmly in the playoff race, and have a currently guaranteed playoff spot. Plus 8.2 differential. They're looking even better than the Grizzlies. They may improve. Crazy stuff. That swap that I got may not be panning out too well. The Phoenix Suns have improved to the 7th seed from the 8th seed last year. They had a minor regression from Steve Nash, nothing from Dwayne Wade. A great progression from Kendall Marshall after getting a ton of looks last year. And Marcin Gortat still there next to Tristan Thompson. Yep, solid team. 4 games above 500 is good for the 7th seed here, whereas 500 is the 7th seed in the East. No changes here. The East is just a lot more shallower. After that, the recently rebranded New Orleans Pelicans, formerly the Hornets, with reigning MVP Chris Paul, are sitting in the 8th seed. Curious to see if they make any sort of tweaks. They had a little bit of regression from Jason Richardson. Not much else to say. Sitting in the 9 seed play-in spot are the Golden State Warriors, who will have Zach Randolph coming in, probably playing the 4 next to JaVale McGee. They sent out Ersan Ilyasova as well as Rudy Gay, who was their 6th man. This team has reshaped their look quite a bit, and while they probably still do have some chemistry issues to work out, they're looking great. Oh, also look at that. The New Orleans Pelicans, a plus 6.7 differential, way above the Suns. So the Suns must have just won some close games. I'm sure the Pelicans will probably be on the rise. Sitting in the 10 seed at the bottom of the play-in race is the San Antonio Spurs. Looking dominant as ever, but, still just a consistent team that is chugging along. Had a Western Conference Finals appearance in the playoffs last year and have regressed just a little bit to the 10 seed. But, they had a slow start last year, and I think that they probably will be improving. A lot of this seems to be their defense, giving up 105 points per game. That is far worse than last year. Not quite sure why that's the case. Sitting in the 11th seed, just outside of the play-in, are the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were flirting with being a playoff team last year. They just brought in Giannis Antetokounmpo as the number one overall pick after jumping like 8 spots in the lottery, and kind of surprising that they're not doing even better. But I guess their defense has shockingly gotten a little bit worse. I think part of that is probably because they're playing their bench quite a bit more minutes than they were last year. But 95.9 still good for what is that? Probably the third best defense in the league, second best defense in the league. Next, the Portland Trailblazers, now under the control of Porstog. This is the roster and coach and assets that previously were the Boston Celtics, swapped with Locke. This team is deep in the tank. They are just looking to build, have acquired a ton of picks. Kind of shocking that they are the 12th seed, but I mean, that speaks great volumes to Brevin Baker and how much he's contributing to their team. In the 13th seed, the Dallas Mavericks. A little bit disappointing, too rusty, but frankly, I think that they're exactly where they need to be. They are deep in the rebuild after losing Dwight Howard. They brought in Dennis Schroeder, and he had an amazing set of random rookie events. So this team is probably about where they need to be. Seattle Supersonics sitting in the 14th seed, extremely deep in the tank and looking to lose. Rudy Gobert, nevertheless, is leading the league in blocks. Not rookies, leading the entire league. That is impressive stuff. And finally, with only 5 wins at the bottom of the West, it looks like not quite the bottom of the entire league. The Raptors are at the bottom right now, but the Oklahoma City Thunder, after trading away Damian Lillard, they have C.J. McCollum filling in his role and scoring like 23 points per game, shockingly even more than Lillard did his rookie year. Boyan Ali is right next to him as their second leading scorer. Decent core for youth to build off of, but this team is going nowhere fast. All right, next let's take a look at team stats. Let's sort first by points per game. You can see, unsurprisingly, the Nuggets leading the way as the most high-powered offense in the league now. You pair up Horford along with, of course, the craziest backcourt in the entire league with Derrick Rose and Curry, and that is the kind of result that you can expect to get. Rockets not too far behind as the only other team above 115 points per game. Shocking. Wow. 113.5 points per game from the Lakers. They are looking incredible. And for the fewest points given up per game, the Pelicans are leading the way with the Nets also ahead of the Timberwolves. Curious to see if that swaps around. Lakers in the bottom third for defense, just barely. Kind of surprising. That could probably stand to improve a little bit, while their offense could probably stand to regress. And take a look at offensive rating. 120 offensive rating from the Nuggets, just barely behind the Rockets. That is going to be the playoff series to watch if that happens. 2 just ridiculously dominant backcourts against one another. Remember that if you see any sort of massive differences in the ranking for offensive rating versus points per game, that likely means that if you have a higher offensive rating and a lower points per game, that your team is underperforming a little bit, or vice versa. And for the best defensive ratings in the league, impressive. The Magic at 97.4 points allowed per game, defensive rating, despite not being in the top 3 for points allowed per game. Kind of crazy how moving a relatively non-defensive big to center in Kevin Love has yielded still great results for their defense. And finally, let's take a look at point differential. Rockets and Nuggets, yet again, just way up ahead. Magic plus 15.6, though, still very, very dominant. It looks like 7 teams are in double-digit point differentials, whereas half of the league is in negative. Wow, what is that? 6 teams are giving up basically minus 11 points per game. That's nuts. The tank is strong with this league right now. Let's take a look at league leaders now. So, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Yet again, the league leading scorer is Kevin Durant. He is ahead of Paul George, who has taken a little bit of a scoring leap by 1.7 points, and he'll be looking at perhaps a 3rd scoring title. Oh no, that is just two actually. That's right because he had the injury last year, and I think Curry took it. Curry has technically regressed just a little bit. I think like by 4 points per game or so to 26.3. A lot of that is because so many of the looks are being shared with Derrick Rose and the rest of their deep dominant team. But Derrick Rose, shockingly, is scoring the exact same amount of points per game that he was last year. For rebounds, yet again, Trevor Booker playing massive 38 minutes per game, above 15 rebounds in back-to-back seasons. That is absolutely crazy. Who knew this guy was this dominant of a rebounder? Shout out Norm Hickman in the top 25 as a rookie. Rondo, one of the big stories of the league here is that after changing scenes and coming to Chicago, a place that he did not really enjoy being in real life, 13.5 assists per game. I think that he's going to be doing just fine. Yeah, his defense has improved. His scoring is even much better than it was, and he is also sitting at number 5 in steals per game. Rondo has been a huge reason why the new look Lob City Bulls are as good as they are. Shout out Derek Williams in I think year 2 at number 7 in the league. And as you can see here, Rudy Gobert leading the league by zero point 0.5 blocks with 3.1 as a rookie. 21 years old and just swatting everything away. Dwight Howard fallen off in terms of his blocks. A lot of that may be the system that we're running, but yeah, 17 in the league, 17th in the league after I think the first 2 seasons leading. That's quite a big drop off. And by 3 point percentage, Oscar Schmidt, 31-year-old rookie coming over from I think Spain. We said in the story, leading the league in 3 point percentage at 45%. That is pretty impressive. Probably a huge reason why the Bobcats are doing better than expected. Kind of a big fall off for Klay Thompson, but he's getting a lot more looks. After 3-pointers made, Boyamet Ali joins that once exclusive club of players who are shooting above 3 3-pointers per game. But now we have 6 players: Caspi Durant, Curry, Harden, Paul George, and Boyamet. Shout out Kawhi Leonard working his way into that, scoring from beyond the arc quite a bit more. Okay, now let's take a look at rookie report. So unsurprising here, CJ McCollum leading rookies in terms of scoring. However, 23.4 points per game. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card. That is crazy. Good for, I think, a top 10 scorer in the entire league. Followed by Victor Oladipo getting a ton of great looks out in Portland. Might be a pretty tight Rookie of the Year race this year. We'll see. With a double-double, Rudy Gobert leading rookies in rebounds. Norm Hickman not far behind with 9.4. Nerlens Noel as well with 9.2. Some decent bigs in this draft. Giannis Antetokounmpo averaging 15.6, 5, 3.5, 1 steal, and just under a block. Not his best numbers. He'll definitely be looking to improve. But still pretty good. Michael Carter-Williams leading rookies in assists with 6.5. It's quite good. Shout out Dennis Schroeder at number 3. Okay, next we're going to take a look at picks. Remember that this does not include the Knicks-Warriors trade for Zach Randolph that has not yet been entered. But all other trades, including whatever the other trade was that happened today. That was the second-round pick for Kelly Olynyk. That is entered here. One thing that is very important to remember here, anytime you see Trailblazers pick that is years 2014 through 2017, so like these 2 seconds right here, these are actually going to be determined by where the Fighting Irish finish, because these were originally Locke's picks. Just think about that as Lockmore's pick, okay? And anything that says Fighting Irish, from 2014 through 2017 is actually going to be based on where the Trailblazers fall, where Porsche Dog's team falls. 2018 and onwards, though, those teams will all have their picks actually labeled to what the team is. It's just a part of the nature of how the teams had to switch. Whenever I have time, I'm going to go through and track all of those picks and make sure that I inform the current owners to make sure that they know where those picks are likely to fall. '18 draft will be quite a big one. Curious to see who starts acquiring a bunch of picks for that. Looks like Thunder and Supersonics are probably still leading the way in terms of picks, although Trailblazers are really not far behind. Also, make sure that you remember that you can only have 3 picks per draft. So, for example, the Wizards here, they are technically not in compliance and will be forced to trade one of these picks away. All right, next let's take a look at cap sheets. Let me make sure that the salary cap is turned off. Okay. Serge Ibaka happily back in Philly on quite a massive contract after his extension. Tony Parker and Joe Johnson contracts, once probably among the most bloated contracts in the league, they are still extremely high, but with just 2 years left after this, they may be movable. Curious to see what the Bobcats do. One thing to note here is you see that empty gap in Patrick Patterson's salary for next year. That is because there was a team option there, and occasionally 2K has a bug where if you extend on a team option, it just makes it $0 for the salary for that year. That'll be fixed, and we'll just move the $875,000 and $945,000 over 1 year. As always, please be updating your sheets so that we have as minimal of a delay as possible whenever we hit the off season and calculating cap space for everybody. Big thanks to Shane for updating everybody's sheet for them and helping in the process this past off season. He has been a godsend in terms of getting sheets up to date, but please help him out and please update your sheet yourself. Luol Deng expiring this year with 14.5 million or so in salary. Curious to see if the Kings let that fall off the books to free up some cap space, or if they extend him, especially after all the success they're having this year. Expiring Zach Randolph, also very interesting. 20 million coming into the Warriors after that trade will be executed. Also, a big question as to whether or not he even will extend for them. Oftentimes, it takes a little while for players to adjust to their new team and agree to an extension, and sometimes that's past the contract extension deadline whenever that happens. Regardless, still have bird rights, though. I love that Zebo has been reunited with the Warriors after being drafted by them and traded before our first sim. Mavericks with a bunch of players falling off the cap table next year. Curious to see if they extend people or if they try to free up more cap space. They already have so much cap space, it probably doesn't make a huge difference. Jersey Nets with some big questions to ask themselves. They do have, I think, the first or second best defense in the league. I don't know, you rewind the video and see that. Okay, so Lance Stevenson, here's another example where that blank salary in 14-15 will be fixed. Pacers with a ton of cap space right now and even more opening next year. After Okafor and AK-47 are both falling off. That's like $25 million in cap. Wow. Just a ludicrous amount of cap space for the Raptors after they made basically no signings in the offseason. Man, Hedo Turkoglu making $12.2 million down to a 66 overall. That is going to be very valuable cap space to open up for the Spurs. He is no longer in that Orlando Magic Finals run fitness that he was back then. Ben Gordon falling off the books for the Seattle Supersonics should open up a good amount of space for them. Timberwolves finally shaping up. It took a little while to build to this point, and granted, they still have quite a bit of room to grow and work out some of the roster construction, but things are really falling together, and they have a strong team identity. Man, Wizards. Whew. All the cap space in the world. This will be a competitive free agency coming up. It's a shame that all of these teams that have a ton of cap space are also losing teams, and so probably not going to be that attractive to max players. Okay, now let's take a look at player stats. Brook Lopez still leading his team in terms of scoring. Unfortunately, I don't think that he progressed over this past offseason. Tony Parker, almost a 20 and 10 player. Impressive at his advanced age. Pretty much 13, 6, 3.5, 1.2, and 0.4 from Oscar Schmidt in his rookie year. You know, quote unquote rookie year as a 31-year-old. Fitting in well, though. That was a good pick by them. $25 and 12 and 5.5 from Blake Griffin. He is loving the 7 seconds offense that they are running. The fit between him and Rondo is just chef's kiss. Harden looking like a dominant scorer pretty much for the first time in this sim. 23.5 points per game. shooting 53% from the field and 43% from three. LeBron, kind of shocking at 18.7 points per game. Not looking as dominant in terms of scoring as he has in past years. Anthony Davis, sophomore, leading the four-seed Hawks in terms of scoring. 2011, 2.7, one steal and 2.6 blocks. Man, he probably is going to be the Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's got my vote so far. Man, the drop-off in scoring from Kevin Durant down 29.7 points per game versus 13 from David West. The boy needs some help. 28, 7, 2.1, 2.2 steals, and 1.2 blocks. Whew. May have spoke too soon. Paul George may be in the DPOY race as well. Crazy scoring leap from him, too. Huge reason why the Jazz are so successful. 21, almost 11, 3.2, 1 and 1 from Boogie. Good splits. He's probably going to be back in the All-NBA race. Amari just really has not been the scorer that they kind of need out of him. 2.5 blocks per game, though. It's got to be good for top 5. The Lakers, 15.3 points per game, 6 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 1 steal, and 1.5 blocks from their starting power forward, Alexis Ajinça. He is looking like a real player now. Shooting basically 40% from the arc, too. That's great for a 7-2 player. $14 and 4.4 from Dennis Schroeder in his rookie year. I was expecting a little bit more from after the rookie events, but I guess a lot of that went to potential, though, so we'll see what he is in his second and third year. 22 points per game from Dirk Nowitzki, despite his little bit of regression. That's really not bad at all. 52% from the field and 40% from the line from the arc. Shout out T-Mac, scoring a big 6 points per game. Man, both 26-point per game players from the Nuggets. Last time two players crossed 25 points per game were the Trailblazers with LeBron and Kmart in the first season. And I think they went on for 65 wins or so. Kind of a disappointing playoff appearance. I think they maybe made the Western Conference Finals, though. But, whew. That Nuggets team has got to be the favorite right now. Reigning MVP, Chris Paul, 13 assists per game pretty much, 2.4 steals. Has not lost a step. These Pelicans will probably improve in the second sem. Kemba Walker, leading the Pistons in scoring with 18.8 points per game. That is impressive considering this is a pretty deep team. Paul Pierce, still producing. Old Paul and Old Yao. I get that you want some veteran presences, but I'm curious if that's going to be the right fit for them. Harrison Barnes with 12.4, 4.8, 1.1, 1.1. Meh. Shooting could be better. John Wall on a potential MVP campaign. 22 points per game, 6 rebounds, almost 11 assists per game, 1.7 steals. Shooting great. Finally is shooting the lights out from 3 with 38%. That is huge for the Rockets. 25 points per game from DeMar DeRozan. After an amazing Western Conference Finals run from the Spurs, he is looking like he is maybe taking a leap and is ready to be the alpha dog. D-Wade doing D-Wade things, yet again, probably going to be in the MVP race. I guess just a little bit worse than last year. But hey, shout out 10.2 assists still from Steve Nash. Rudy Gobert and the other guys. That is pretty much the Seattle Supersonics for you right now. Can't argue with that 3.1 blocks per game, though. That is just crazy. Trevor Booker, man, if he could just shoot a little bit better from the paint, then, I mean, he could be a very valuable asset for the Thunder to trade off. Shout out Shane for signing Nate Lopez Seneschal's brother Cam to a 1-year minimum after going undrafted. This Blazers team is not just picks, in my opinion. Between Steven Adams, Victor Oladipo, and Norm Hickman, who had the Tim Duncan comp, that's a pretty decent young core. If they can properly tank and maintain all of those picks, that team is going to have a bright future as soon as the landscape shifts in the West. Shout out Cookie 0-5, man. 12, 7, 3.5, 1.1. He's looking, I guess he's shooting terribly, but other than that, he's looking about as good as Oscar Schmidt, who's, what, like, geez, 12 years a senior? Okay. Now let's take a look at contract extensions. I'll remind you that you get 2 contract extensions to do during the regular season, and then 1 in the following off season. So make sure to be frugal with those. Kobe willing to extend for the Lakers. That's pretty big for them. Pau, too. You know, we think of Pau as being super old, but he's really 33. That's not that bad. If he ages gracefully as a big, he still could be producing for years to come. Could be worth that extension for the Lakers. Oh, Kevin Garnett has announced that he will retire next year. Whew. Despite having a guaranteed salary, that is big news for the Nets. 37 years old. Kind of was hoping that he had a year or 2 left in him. Chris Paul wanted to re-sign for the Pelicans. And Bosch. Big news. Tyson Chandler refusing, though. Paul Pierce and Conley for the Pistons. Marc Gasol, Tyrese Thomas, a couple important Spurs players here. Flash willing to re-sign for the Suns. That is big for them. Whether they retain him or use that as a trade bait. Okay. Next, we're going to show upcoming free agents just so you get a, where would that be? Here we go. An idea of who is going to be available in free agency next year. Remember that this does include restricted free agents. So, for example, Kyrie Irving, I can tell you, oh, he's not even a restricted free agent. He's a team option. So obviously the Rockets will be picking up that team option. But this does include restricted free agents that the team will be able to match on them, as well as players who might extend or even could retire. So this is by no means a comprehensive list of the upcoming free agents, but still should give you an idea of what you're saving your cap space for. Give you a strategy of where you want to direct that money. It's always a good idea to actually have targets in mind. We'll go through 80 overalls. Although there's, of course, still plenty of players that are worth taking a look at. This is just too long of a list and too incomplete of information. Okay. And now let's take a look at the current free agents that are still available in case anybody wants to make some signings. Steven Jackson just recently released from the Portland Trail Blazers as a result of their trade to bring in Kelly Olynyk. Shout out the GOAT to Saginaw Diop, only 30 years old, man. Begging for a supermax, whoever's willing to give it to him. We'll just go through 72 overalls. And you know what? Because I love you so much, I'm going to show through 21-year-olds, the young free agent prospects, in case anybody wants to take a swing at someone. Take a flyer. I'm not going to go too deep into it, just through 21-year-olds, and then I'll show you their listed potential here, but like a broken record, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I do every single time. Take the letter grade potential with a grain of salt. Very high chance that it is not actually accurate. It is based on the scout of the team that we are currently assigned to. So right now that is the 76ers, as you can see in the top right. And so this will differ quite a bit from team to team, usually like a letter grade and a half or so. So pay a lot more attention to the attribute profile, see where their strengths and weaknesses are, see which will fit in your team, and that'll be a stronger indication of what the player's success will be. But never hurts to have potential as another indicating factor as well. Okay, that'll do it. So we'll probably be setting the next deadline for Wednesday, as I have a relatively busy Monday and Tuesday. But we'll keep you up to date and give you the official announcement soon. So happy trading.